Hey, what's going on? Today I wanted to talk to you guys about the gear I took with me on my trip to Iceland. And I specifically wanted to talk about this trip because I had to pack quite a bit differently for this one because the beginning of the trip was actually a backpacking trip. So all I had with me was a 65-liter backpacking backpack. So all of my gear for the whole trip, including a tent, sleeping bags, food for the backpacking portion, and all my camera gear had to fit in this backpack. And if you're not into backpacking and you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm just going to show you the backpack so you actually understand what I'm dealing with here. So this is the backpack, 65 liters. Everything I had with me for the entire 8-day trip was in this bag. So given my limited bag space, I knew I had to pack strategically, especially with my camera gear because I just did not have a lot of space. First, I want to talk about the lenses that I brought. The first lens I want to talk about is the 28-75 Tamron f2.8. So this lens is great. It's a great alternative to something like the 24-70 f2.8 G Master from Sony or the 24-70 Art lens from Sigma. Even though it's cheaper than those other two options I was talking about, it's still a great quality lens. I have no issues with it really. Autofocus is really good and all of my image quality is really good. During this trip, this lens was on my camera probably 90% of the time just because of how usable it is from 28-75 and having that 2.8 constant aperture across the whole focal length. The only other lens that I brought with me was the Sony 70-300 G lens, and it's a 4.5 to 5.6. So I brought this lens because I wanted to capture the puffins. So going in August, I knew I had a really high probability of being able to see puffins. And I went with this lens instead of something like the 70-200 G Master lens f2.8 because I wanted that extra 100 millimeters reach. I thought that was a lot more important than having something like 2.8 aperture for the low light capabilities because I knew I was gonna be shooting the puffins during the day and I just didn't need that shallow depth of field. I needed to reach a lot more. And I was actually able to use this lens up to about a 450 millimeter equivalent, and I'll explain how I did that later when I talk about the camera that I brought. But yeah, this lens is awesome. The optical steady shot that it has makes the handheld stuff so smooth, which is really nice because pretty much everything I shot on this lens when I was shooting the puffins was handheld. The camera I brought with me on this trip was my Sony A7IV, which I'm actually shooting on right now. The A7IV is an awesome hybrid camera. It shoots 33 megapixel stills and up to 4K 60 frames per second when I'm shooting video. So I mean, I really don't need much more than that. It's pretty perfect for me. The only downside is when I am shooting that 4K 60 frames per second, it does do a 1.5 times crop. So I just have to be conscious of that and multiply my focal length by 1.5 to actually figure out what I will be shooting in. That crop does actually come in pretty handy sometimes. Like for example, I was saying before, when I was shooting on 70-300 and punched into 300 millimeters, I was able to use that crop to get an additional 1.5 times zoom on that, making it 450. Outside of shooting 4K 60, this crop can be turned on and off at any time. So if you're shooting 24 frames per second in 4K and you want to crop in a little bit more, you actually can enable that APS-C or that Super 35 mode, and it's still shooting 4K, so you don't lose any image quality by cropping in. You will lose image quality on the photo mode if you crop in, but not in the video mode. It's still gonna be 4K, so I think that's awesome. The A7IV also has in-body 5-axis IBIS, so that's in-body image stabilization for you guys who don't know. And so it's just the sensor moving around as the camera moves to help stabilize the image. So for me, shooting pretty much everything handheld usually, it really helps stabilize my footage without having to do a whole bunch in post or just always be shooting in 60 frames per second and slowing things down just to smooth things out. For my audio, I went with a small Rode mic, primarily because it doesn't require any batteries. For me on this trip, that was super important because I didn't want to have to worry about recharging or replacing batteries for a microphone because I already had enough stuff to worry about charging. And if you've ever been to Iceland, you know how windy it is, so you know the value of something like a dead cat. in windy situations. And this one comes with the dead cat, which is super nice. It's really simple to use. You just slide it into the hot shoe mount on top of your camera, tighten it down, and then this plugs into your 3.5mm jack on the side of your camera, and you've got way better audio than you would if you were just using your camera's audio. Now, I wasn't gonna go to Iceland and not bring a drone. So I brought my DJI Mini 3 Pro with me when I went. I don't have it with me anymore. When I was just in Southeast Asia this summer, I broke it. I didn't crash it. I swear I didn't crash it. I was putting it away after I had just flown it and closing up the arm, and it just snapped. So yeah, I don't have that anymore, but I did have it with me on this trip, and it was great because of how small it is and how small it packs down. I actually kept it in a fanny pack for most of the time, so it was super convenient to just zip up the fanny pack I had across my chest and pull it out, open it up, and take off. Even though it doesn't have the best image quality compared to other drones on the market, it still has really good image quality, does 4K, and it's just so valuable having something that packs down that small when you're doing a trip like this. So for me, it was perfect. A piece of gear that I find super valuable are these Peak Design capture clips. So these go onto your backpack, and then they come with this base plate that attaches to your camera. So when this is on your camera, you can just slide your camera right into the clip and it locks into place on your backpack. I love this for backpacking or hiking because I'm easily able to just put my camera on my bag and it's good to go, or quickly take it off, take some pictures, take some videos, and I'm also good to go. My only issue with these is that once you have that base plate on the bottom of your camera, if you did want to switch your camera over to something like a tripod, you'd have to take that base plate off. So I found this quick release system from Ulanzi and Fallcam that has the Peak Design on one side and their F38 quick release system on the other side. And then you can get their base plates to put on something like a tripod or a gimbal or anything else that you want to put your camera on. So it's nice because on the one side that they have the Peak Design, that works with these clips for the backpack. And then on the other side, you have it on something like a tripod that works on those. And so it's locked in either way. So you can quickly, with one plate, go from tripod to your backpack strap. Another really important thing I had with me were my Tiffen variable ND filters. So they are actually a 2 to 9 stop VND, and I love these things because of the range of ND you get out of them. A lot of ND filters are either like a 2 to 5 stop or a 6 to 9, and so you usually have to buy 2 of them to get the same that you get in one of these. The one downside is it doesn't lock past where your markers are, so if you go past, you can get that X cross in your footage. It's just something to be conscious of as you're filming. Just be checking and making sure you're not passing any of those markers. On the note of variable ND filters, do yourself a favor and just get an 82mm threaded ND filter, or any filter you're getting in general. Don't do what I did and get a 77mm threaded ND filter, because eventually you'll probably have a lens that's an 82mm threaded lens, and your 77mm isn't gonna work on it. But your 82mm will work on any lens because you can get step-up rings. So that just allows you to use your bigger threaded filter on a smaller threaded lens. Plus, the center of something like a variable ND filter, the glass is a lot higher quality than on the edges. So when you're using something like a 67mm threaded lens and you're just using the center of that 82mm filter, it's gonna be better quality anyway. Because I was backpacking during the beginning of this trip, I didn't have access to wall chargers to be able to charge my gear. So I brought this OtterBox 20,000 milliamp hour battery pack. It came in super handy because I was able to charge my camera gear, my phone, everything that I needed without having to have extra batteries, because I had such limited space and limited ability to organize things. So this came in really handy just to be able to charge everything every night, and I never had any issues with battery. The last thing I had to think about were the SD cards I was bringing, because I wasn't going to have my laptop to be able to dump all of my photos and videos every night. So I knew I had to have enough storage in my camera to be able to last the 8-day trip. I go with these ProGrade SD cards. I have 128 gig and then I have a 256 gig. And it's nice because the A7IV has dual card slots, so I'm able to have both of these in the camera at the same time. And I have my settings set up where if the one fills up, it'll move on to the other one. This was super nice because I didn't really have to worry about storage during the trip. And these ProGrade SD cards are really reliable. I've never had any issues with them, and I've had them for over 2 years. They're great SD cards, really fast read and write speeds. Really no complaints at all with these. So that's all the gear I took with me to Iceland. If you're going to Iceland, or if you've already been to Iceland, let me know down below in the comments what gear you took or are taking with you. I'd love to see what other people are using as well. If you have any questions about any of the gear I talked about today, please feel free to ask. Leave a comment down below or DM me on Instagram, whatever. I'm more than glad to reach back out and help you guys out. I did leave links to all of the gear I brought down below in the show notes. Just know that those are affiliate links, so if you buy through those, I do get a kickback. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Please like and subscribe to my channel. It really helps out. And until next time, see ya.